I would,
Usually,
1 through, okay. In mine, it looks like 6, but maybe it's 7. You end with the purpose of their inheritance. There's, what I have as 7 is Jacob saying, when I was on my way from Paddan, that's
That's
7. We want to start that starts another section.
oh, okay, because that sentence is part of the
Oh,
other
okay.
paragraph in
this-
mine.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
they break the
The
paragraphs.
paragraph ends
strangely.
after 7, and the
And
next
mine
paragraph
ends
starts
after
with 8.
6.
the paragraphs are not necessarily
The
set up
same,
as we're used to them
okay.
being set
Yes.
up. They were
So-
artificially put in many
Okay.
years after it was originally written.
All
I
right,
understand.
all right,
As
okay.
were the numbers. They didn't come originally
Oh,
either.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, after this, Joseph was told, your father is ill. So he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, your son Joseph has come to you, he summoned his strength and sat up in bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and he blessed me and said to me, I am going to make you fruitful and increase your numbers. I will make of you a company of people and will give this land to your offspring after you for a perpetual holding. Therefore, your 2 sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are now mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are. As for the offering born to you after them, they shall be yours. They shall be recorded under the names of their brothers with regard to their inheritance.
So what is happening in this section? This is important to the history of Israel.
Well, even though Joseph's 2 sons were born in Egypt and being raised like Egyptians, Israel is including them in the inheritance and with all of his sons, even though
Yes.
they're grandsons.
Yes, so he's adopting these 2 because if we read on, eventually we find out that the 12 sons of Jacob are the 12 tribes that get pieces of land in Canaan.
And this explained 2 of the tribes, how these 2 got into that 12, right?
So this incorporates these 2 into that group of 12, which is somewhat arbitrary because it keeps talking throughout. It talks about the 12 sons of Jacob, but who they are sort of change from time to time. But eventually, it gets settled, and Manasseh and Ephraim are listed as sons of Jacob.
Are they different? Were they different people over time? Or were they different names, as in Jacob/Israel? Do we know?
They're different names, which is and those listings are different people. So, and I've never sat down and tried to parse it all out. I just know that you keep getting people added to Jacob's sons, and the number keeps being 12. So, but otherwise, Joseph would have been the tribal leader, but Joseph doesn't make it to Canaan during the Exodus. Joseph has died, And so this makes Ephraim and Manasseh, sons of Jacob, eligible to inherit property in Canaan. So that's what's happening here. Do I have you in the picture, Marcia?
You do.
Okay. This is really sort of bizarre. So, so won't you start with 7 and go through 16?
Okay. But when I came from Padan, Rachel last died in the land of Canaan on the way, while there was still some distance to go to Ephraim, and I buried her there on the way to Ephraim, that is Bethlehem. When Israel saw Joseph's sons, he said, "Who are these?" Joseph said to his father, "They are my sons, whom God has given me here." And he said, "Bring them to me, please, that I may bless them." Now the eyes of Israel were dim with age, and he could not see well. So Joseph brought them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. Israel said to Joseph, "I did not expect to see your face, and here God has let me see your children also." Then Joseph removed them from his father's knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand towards Israel's left, and Manasseh in his left hand towards Israel's right, and brought them near him. But Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on the head of Ephraim, who was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, crossing his hands. For Manasseh was the firstborn. He blessed Joseph and said, "The God before whom my ancestors Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all harm, bless the boys, and in them let my name be perpetuated, and the name of my ancestors Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude on the earth."
Okay. So there's some interesting similarities to previous events, and we're going to find out that things are not quite the way they seemed at first. But what does this? What previous event is echoed here?
But putting the younger ahead of the oldest.
Mm-hmm. And how was that done?
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah, by switching
Well, I'm sorry, no, I'm
the
Previously,
past,
referring back to when the,
with Esau and.
right?
Jacob.
Esau and
Yeah.
Jacob, and then there was
Yeah,
another.
that was deceitful,
yes,
yeah.
but
And then there was
it
another
was,
case also.
they got able to get away with it because Esau, not Esau, getting the names, because Abraham, Isaac was blind.
Yeah.
Couldn't see well. And
It
that's how
also
they
s-
got away with, huh?
But it also says that he crossed his arms.
Well, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, it's, this,
and
this
it's-
seems
But-
more intentional,
But it's
but
like,
it
why did he
appears-
cross his arms?
Well, we'll get to that.
to get the
Uh,
proper hand on the proper child.
But it appears that he is messing up because of his poor eyesight.
Yeah.
And basically, instead of putting his hands out like this, so his right hand would be on the head of the
The oldest.
older, he put his hands out like he thought Joseph. The first response is that they think it because he's can't see very well, that he crossed his hands because Joseph would have had his oldest son, at his right hand. And so he crosses his hand because he thinks, the first thought is that he's not seeing well, and so he's thinking he's got the oldest, youngest, but Joseph had brought him forth, so the oldest would be on Jacob's right hand. So there's this confusion around what Jacob is doing, and it's a hint back to Isaac and the way Jacob and Esau got blessed because he could not see. So there's a blessing, and although it's the sons that are on whom Jacob has put his hands, he's blessing Joseph. It says, then he blessed Joseph, saying, and then this is the sort of traditional blessing. God of our fathers, Abraham and Isaac. So he's taking the traditional blessing, then it becomes, bless these boys, may my name live on in them, and the names of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac. So he starts off with the blessing of Joseph, and then transfer that blessing to Joseph's sons. So we've got sort of a complex operation going on here. Okay.
Stage right. I think your screen is.
Yeah, the
Huh?
screen's down.
Is it back up?
Nope. I don't know if you lost it.
I hit something and moved it.
That's better.
And so, Rich,
Till where?
7, huh?
Till where?
To the end of the chapter.
When Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. So he took his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. Joseph said to his father, "Not so, my father. Since this one is the firstborn, put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall become a multitude of nations." So he blessed them that day, saying, "By you Israel will invoke blessings, saying, God make you like Ephraim and like Manasseh." So he put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, "I am about to die, but God will be with you and will bring you again to the land of your ancestors. And I'll give to you one portion more than to your brothers, the portion I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and with my bow."
Okay.
God picks favorites. Okay, there.
So,
Mm-hmm.
turns out Jacob is not confused.
Not at all.
He knows what he's doing, and he's elevating Ephraim to a higher position than Manasseh.
Even though he must not know anything about them personally, it must just be that he feels led to do that.
Well,
Well,
he
You think
he gets messages, doesn't
Think
he?
he
I
already
mean,
heard?
yeah. What we're seeing here is trying to lay the foundation for what
Right.
the writer already knows. Remember, the writers are considerably later
Right.
than this event. So the writers know that Ephraim and Manasseh are treated as sons of Jacob. They get parcels of land like the other sons do, and that Ephraim becomes the stronger of the two. So the writer knows that, but we're back in this sort of prehistory time saying, and why did that happen? And so he is showing us how it happened, as though Jacob knew what was to come.
Yeah.
Now, whether he does or not, we don't know that. But anyway, this is trying to fit something unusual into what really did happen, because Manasseh and Ephraim should not have been considered as separate tribes. They were the sons of Joseph, not of Jacob. So we have this ceremony going on and these legal transactions going on where Ephraim and Manasseh become the sons of Jacob. He adopts them, and then he blesses them, but he blesses Ephraim first and Manasseh second. So it's going through this sort of legal processes of creating what the writer knows, because the tribes are already in place by the time he's writing this. And so first he adopts them, then he blesses them twice. The first time it's a longer blessing, originally aimed toward Joseph, but becomes the sons, and then he reaffirms the blessing in a very short section. And then he wraps it up by going back to Joseph. Again, I'm about to die, but God will be with you and take you back to the country of your fathers. As for me, I give you. Now, this is a rather interesting word. I'm sorry, Rich, what did yours say?
Which?
That he gave.
Verse 22, as I
now
give.
give to you one portion, more than to your brothers, the portion that I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword, and for portion they mention, what's the number?
Well, that's okay, we'll get to it.
Okay.
What,
Mine says it gave him the mountain slope that he
Okay.
took from the Amorites.
Or the
Oh.
mount, here it says in the bottom, or mountain slope, Hebrew Shechem, play on the name of the town and the district of Shechem.
yes. And other translations?
Which is yours?
Mine says mountain slope.
What's the version?
Oh,
Sorry.
student
Student.
Mine
study
doesn't say
guide,
anything
yeah.
about mountain slopes.
What does it say?
Mine says, I now give to you one portion more than to your brothers, the portion that I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and with my bow.
You may have a little asterisk that,
Yeah.
it's in the footnote.
Mine says
I have no asterisk.
No footnote.
Okay, and
mountain slope.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
wait a minute, there is one up there under the portion, or mountain slope.
There you go.
okay. The translation I have says Shechem.
That's an original. So where's mountain slope come from? What's that mean? No, it's
Well,
a play on the name or Shechem.
The Hebrew word from which the name of the city came means the shoulder, which is considered to be the best part of an animal that when you're serving people, serving the shoulder, you're serving the best part.
Oh, for eating the animal.
Yeah,
Oh, not for the animal doing work, okay.
okay.
Yeah.
And
Gonna
so,
eat the animal, yeah.
so this word is used, and it has a variety of meanings from it. But the fundamental part of it is Joseph is supposed to be getting a larger portion than his other brothers. And what, we'll get to this later, but what is also interesting here, there's no reference of Jacob conquering a portion of the Canaanite or Amorite people. So, but anyway, we are getting back to Joseph, and as he's been the special child all along, he's getting an extra blessing. Okay.
How far you want me to read?
1 through 4.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
we're going to take this brother by brother.
okay. Then Jacob called his sons and said, "Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you what shall happen to you in days to come. Assemble and listen, O sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and my first fruits of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. Unstable as water, you shall not have preeminence, because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch."
Okay.
Which is beautiful.
We probably have all sorts of differences in the translations. Anything significant, or do they all basically say the same thing?
Pretty much the same on
Pretty
mine.
much the same.
They had Excel instead of.
Mm-hmm. So, Linda, could you look back to Genesis 35, verse 22? It may be 21 and 22. There's several, 2 or 3 verses that go together.
Obviously, it was a big no-no. that he
Yes.
Slept with the concubine. 35, and it's 22, you said?
Yes,
Okay.
or there may
Yeah,
be.
yep, that's, while Israel lived in that land, Reuben went and
There it
lay
is,
with
okay.
Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard of it.
Okay, so he is now correcting a bad deed by Reuben.
He's getting around to meting out the punishment.
Yes.
So how different are the 12 names compared to,
Hmm.
how different are these 12 names here compared to 22?
Mhm.
We'll see in a minute, right?
Yes. So, so we're back to you, Belinda.
Okay. Five to where?
To 7, in other words, the Simeon and Levi section.
Okay. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords. May I never come into their council. May I not be joined to their company. For in their anger they killed men, and at their whim they hamstrung oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel.
Okay. Um, do you remember what Simon and Levi did, or do we need to go back and read?
They killed the men that raped their sister?
That's what they did.
But they killed everybody,
Yes,
Oh, yeah, they killed
and they
him.
killed the animals.
yes.
Yeah,
Ah,
they
So
They
they
killed
savagely
everything.
wiped it out.
wiped out the whole city.
Yes.
I mean, they
And
were very
so
bad.
now their comeuppance is occurring. Something that didn't have consequences connected with it, now we're seeing the consequences.
It's karma.
mm.
And, okay, Marcia, you get Judah.
8 through 12 then. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you. Judah is the lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He crouches down. He stretches out like a lion, like a lioness who dares rouse him up. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and the obedience of the people is his. Binding his foal to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washes his garments in wine and his robe in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine and his teeth whiter than milk.
That's an odd thing to happen.
This has a little bit of everything in it.
Mm.
So it starts off with Judah is going to be the preeminent brother. Your brother shall praise you. You'll grip your enemies by their neck. Your father's son shall do you homage. So Judah is to become the preeminent brother. And then you get this sign of rule. The scepter shall not pass from Judah, nor the mace from between his feet, until he come to whom it belongs. This has a variety of interpretations. The most direct is that the king of Israel will be a descendant of Judah, but that something may happen and it doesn't quite come to him as it should have. Now, what we know in history is that the first king of Israel was Saul, and I think he was a Benjamite. I'm not positive, but I think he was a Benjamite. He was not from the tribe of Judah. And when he died, then David became the king, and this created a lot of controversy because the son of Saul or somebody from within the tribe of Benjamin did not get named king. Somebody from the tribe of Judah became the king. And so this is referencing that eventually it will be somebody from the tribe of Judah who rules. And in the Christian era, some have looked back to this and seen it as a messianic projection that the person to whom it belongs, the scepter belongs, is Jesus. That's almost for sure not what the writer intended. This is setting up the groundwork for a king that came from Judah. Although something gets in the way of it, and before it finally comes to him. And do I have anything about all this stuff here? 11. Anybody in their notes have something about 11 and 12?
Mine's up in 10.
Let's see.
Well, my footnotes say the same stuff you're talking about. The story of succession to David features a similar displacement of older sons.
Mm-hmm.
And the scepter and staff are representatives of sovereignty.
Okay.
Yeah, and mine just ends with the royal line of Judah culminates with Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. I don't have any notes. I don't remember anything in the commentaries, but this section in here about wine and blood and wine and milk is confusing. And I don't have any notes as to what that might mean.
I mean, the donkey,
Mhm.
Jesus rode in
Right,
on an ass,
right.
or whatever, and the wine was the blood of Christ. I mean,
Yeah, it can be read that way, but
mean-
as I said, the writer didn't mean that.
yeah,
And it's not clear with the way it's written that it's condemning Judah for anything. And so I'm just not sure what it all means. It, in general, sounds like praise. It could be read as praise. The part that has the negativity to it is his eyes are cloudy with wine.
Mine are darker than wine.
Yeah, mine are darker than
That's
wine.
to me, that's a
Yeah.
different reading.
Ah,
yeah,
See, mine says darker.
darker than wine.
oh, well, good.
So it's a matter of what color is it? His teeth are whiter than milk. Like this is some stud here who's got a glaze and he's going to transfix you. That's how I
Mhm. That's a much better translation.
Not that they use the word stud in those days,
This
but
one,
you get the idea.
in this translation, that really stands out as being possibly negative, but in the other translations, it's continuing to be a physical description, which is what the teeth are
Whiter
with
than milk.
Yeah, I'm confused a little bit by who washes his garments in wine and his robe in the blood of grapes. That's a good thing. To me, that would stain clothes, but
Yeah,
because it's more expensive than water, is that the concept?
Well, I'm gonna say,
Well,
the
but the
blood
color-
of grapes is wine.
But it's purple,
Well, it's grape
and
juice.
purple is
Purple's-
royalty.
white.
Until it's fermented, then it's
Right.
wine, right?
But
Right.
grapes,
But
if
I
you dip
wouldn't-
them in, if you dip your clothes in there, they come out purple.
If there's purple grapes.
And
There's also very,
yeah, there's
like,
I don't
I don't
think
know
they
what
had
they had.
rosé, but
or the green ones.
I don't know.
Anyways, go ahead.
Zinfandel, I don't know. But it would have stained them purple. And
Which is
purple
supposed
is
to
the
be
color
royal
of
color.
royalty.
Okay,
Okay.
that's what it, thank you. Very, very good.
So-
That's a
Right,
good
yeah,
explanation
purple's
of
the
that.
color of royalty.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
Yeah.
and binding his foal to the vine. All I can think of is later on, Jesus is saying,
Mhm.
I'm the vine, you are the branches.
Mm-hmm.
So binding his foal to the vine, meaning he's part of Jesus's line. I
It says
suppose
his
it can
donkey.
be
Yeah.
interpreted lots of different ways, but
Binds
it's,
his, yeah. Binds his donkey colt to the choice vine. Seemed like you got the good parking spot.
Ah, okay.
yeah,
Very
That
simple.
would make more sense.
view
Yeah.
of my view there.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Have untangled this section. And the translation I'm working with makes it more confusing. So,
We don't want it more confusing.
And I would think back then, dark eyes would be a good thing.
Yes.
Because
more
they would
authoritative.
have, they wouldn't have a lot of blue-eyed people
Right.
or light-skinned people or
Right.
fair
Mhm.
eyes or hazel
Mhm.
eyes. The dark eyes would be a
Mhm.
true
Right.
strain of
Mhm.
Right.
their
Mediterranean.
genealogy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody looked like us.
Yeah.
We think they did, but they didn't really,
Not
right?
exactly.
Not exactly like
Yeah,
us.
we've been diluted with,
Okay. Rich, I'm gonna let you read about two brothers, but one at a time, so.
Zebulun shall settle at the shore of the sea. He shall be a haven for ships, and his border shall be at Sidon. I don't know if I pronounced it Sidon.
Mm,
Um,
Close enough.
So,
Okay.
Sounds like there's-
doesn't say a lot for him.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, it
No.
doesn't say much about him.
sounds like he's gonna, the people of that, sounds gonna be a port city. Is that
Yeah,
kind of it, or?
a beacon of light to the ships and a fisher of men and who knows? I
No,
mean,
that's what you're saying.
He's at the ocean.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's at a port city.
Yeah,
He gets a portion of Canaan that joins the sea. And, but there's not much else about him.
hopefully
By
he
the
will
border.
be a blessing to
And then
those who
the-
come ashore.
And the commentary noted that we don't know much at all about
Some of them.
Zebulun. He's historically a very minor note. So it makes sort of sense that not much is said about him.
Mine
Well,
actually
There's
says
a
that
number of them that are.
since Zebulun's territory did not actually extend to the Mediterranean Sea, Jacob's remarks are difficult to interpret.
Interesting.
So it's saying that Zebulun, whatever territory Jacob is giving him, it says it didn't extend to the Mediterranean Sea,
Okay.
which, I mean, that sounds,
Right, because it says he
Dumb.
settles at the shore of
Yeah.
the sea.
I mean,
Right there.
why
Right,
would,
it says shore of the sea.
exactly.
Could that have been a lake, like the Sea of Galilee? I mean, not that one maybe, but another body of
No,
water?
it means the Mediterranean.
You would think they would by sea, but it's a haven for ships. So after mentioning several other brothers, were quite violent,
Yeah, that,
this one's going to be a peaceful town. Is what it sounded like, a place they could come and not be pillaged,
mhm.
do trade.
Although it goes on to say major trading routes from the coast, which lay about 10 miles to the west, ran through the region of Zebulun,
Mm-hmm.
and Zebulunites were involved in the coastal commerce of exporting and importing.
How is that about going west from the coast? What was that?
It was about 10 miles to the west,
Okay, well, 10 miles to the west of the coast would be 10 miles out in the sea,
and,
right?
No, it's,
well,
Or are they
this
talking
is-
Inland,
different
they're talking
water,
about
like Marshall
inland.
suggested?
10 miles inland.
Oh, inland, okay,
Um,
to the
Mhm.
west.
And if Zidon refers to Phoenicia in general, then
mhm.
the statement that his border shall be at Zidon is appropriate.
They're
Whatever
sailors
that
themselves,
is.
right? A lot,
Yeah.
the Phoenicians, is that right?
The Phoenicians are a different tribe.
Right, but weren't
And
they seafarers?
They are, yes, they're big
Yeah.
traders.
Yeah, Okay.
And at least at this point, the conversation about Zebulun indicates that he has some connection to the sea.
Mm.
It says he lives by the shore of the sea.
Yeah.
So it's not terribly clear, and I just looked quickly through the maps in this Bible, and it's not clear where Zebulun's territory is. Okay,
Okay.
let's, Rich, if you'll do Issachar.
Issachar is a strong donkey, lying down between the sheepfolds. He saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, so he bowed his shoulder to the burden and became a slave at forced labor.
Any,
Well, they become a slave too, his brothers.
Yeah, and what land are they
No.
talking about?
well, these are another listing of the 12 sons of Jacob and the land that they're to get in Canaan. And so he gets land that's very prosperous. It's got sheep. It doesn't have to work hard to grow things in it. And
Now, my notes say that it indicates that, like a donkey, they will be forced to work for others.
Mhm.
Now, he may be prosperous, like the individuals in Egypt were prosperous for a time, but they were
eventually,
working for the
yeah.
Pharaoh.
And that seems to be the
So-
indication here that Issachar starts off strong, but it's so easy to farm the area he's in that he gets lazy and eventually becomes not exactly a servant, but a state or a little group that's now controlled by the Canaanites.
So what's your reading saying now? Linda? The last line of 15.
So he bowed his shoulder to bear and became a servant at forced labor,
Okay, servant versus slave at forced labor.
which
Mhm.
we notice in here, servant and slave are kind of.
Right.
They're intermingled a
they're-
lot.
Yeah, and the slave,
Those two get
we talked
intermingled.
about last week, didn't necessarily mean,
Mhm.
have the same meaning that slave does to us as far as
Yeah.
the blacks that were brought here,
Mhm.
the Africans that were brought as slaves.
And
They were more
but
like indentured
you do
servants.
have something in there that this translation doesn't have that's very important about Baal.
Bowed his shoulder to bear,
Yes.
yeah.
So I finally remembered the phrase I was trying to remember. He most likely he became a client state of Canaan. He sort of ruled his little territory, but all the benefits of it goes to Canaan. He, in effect, has sort of become a Canaanite. I don't recall in the history that Canaan actually occupied a section of Israel. I think it's more that he lost his faith in Yahweh and put his faith in Baal, and then became a client state of Canaan.
Oh.
Whoever Canaan is at this point.
So all these children so far have been Leah's children in the previous
Oh,
chapter so far that we've read.
okay.
Stuff like that. Going back to where they listed them back in
Yeah.
35:23.
Yeah.
They would have been the older ones, so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
again,
by Leah and her, yeah,
concubine.
concubine, yeah.
Okay. You
Dan.
get Dan.
Okay, I like the name Dan, that's just so
Mhm.
non-Jewish and yeah. You go from Ishtar to Dan. Yeah. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way a viper by the path that bites the horse's heels, so that his rider falls backward. I wait for your salvation.
No, no.
And yeah,
Stop.
that's it. So his
No.
rider falls backward.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like you're judging Dan's name, don't you think?
Hello.
Yeah, it kind of was.
That was a joke, right? You get the joke?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, I do.
Good. 'Cause I'm not teasing you.
It's just, all the names are
No,
so
I'm
difficult
trying
to
to-
pronounce,
Well,
and
no,
then it came
that
along.
word Dan means
Dan.
judge.
Does,
Yeah,
Means judge.
does,
That's what I'm joking at.
I was gonna say,
But
does
yes.
anybody have a reference to a passage in Genesis around this Dan section? Otherwise, I'll have to go back.
Genesis 36.
Tribal name is derived
Well,
from the
just-
Hebrew verb for judge.
Yeah, just
Dan.
Mhm.
explaining that his name means judge.
Okay.
Yeah. Although mine references the snake behavior to Judges 18, which we haven't read, but yeah. But it said the snake-like behavior is later seen in their assault on the unsuspecting inhabitants of Laish.
Okay. So that's what Dan, he's going to become a judge, but apparently not a very honest one. Now, this next verse is a sort of a preamble to our study of the Psalms. So this verse, trust in your salvation, Yahweh. Long Psalms often are broken up with a passage of praise. And so, and this whole thing that we're reading now is in poetic form. And your translation may indeed put it in
Yeah, mine has it
a
in a
format
poetic.
like this, which is
Yeah.
an indication that it's poetry.
Yeah,
Yeah, see.
And it's a
Yeah.
fairly long piece of poetry.
yeah.
And so the writer breaks it up with this sentence of praise for Yahweh, which is characteristic of Psalms.
And mine makes a comment that it's a brief prayer that shows his concern for his descendants, that without divine help, they will not survive.
Oh, okay.
So he's, yeah. But it does sound like, I wait for your salvation, O Lord, mine says.
So,
It looks like he's waiting to die, and please, you know,
yes.
take me to the beyond,
So-
wherever.
Belinda, why don't you do the next three brothers?
Okay. Gad shall be raided by raiders, but he shall raid at their heels. Asher's food shall be rich, and he shall provide royal delicacies. Naphtali is a doe let loose that bears lovely fawns.
Okay.
So those three sound like they're gonna be okay.
All three were sons of the maids, Gad and Asher from Laban.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
So
Naphtali
that's why they're
was
sort
along
of
with Dan from
lapped
Bilhah,
together.
Rachel's.
And
Yeah, for
Gad retaliates against those who rob from him and goes and robs back. Okay, my notes that Gad's section in Canaan was on the edge and actually is on the other side of the Jordan from what we usually think of as Israel. And so he was surrounded by hostile tribes. And that's why he's in this back and forth of raids.
They have to defend their land.
My notes don't say anything about Asher and his bread. Anybody have a note about
It
Asher?
says
and-
Asher's descendants will enjoy success. Their territory along the coastal plain of Akko will
Okay,
provide fertile land and harbors for trade.
okay. So that's what's happened for him. And let's see. Um, there are a number of sections in here where the exact meaning of the Hebrew word is not clear, and they are taking their best guess. This is the one that is really unclear. It's not exactly clear what the word is or what it means. Own up, Leo.
Oh. Oh, I've got a notation on mine, for the Beer's Lovely Fawns, or that gives beautiful words.
Okay,
I have traditional rendering is Shaddai,
I'm sorry, what?
Shaddai.
Okay,
Well, we have the hymn El Shaddai, El Shaddai.
right. Mhm. And that was one of the names in the previous chapter
Yeah.
of God, El Shaddai was.
And that's what it says for lovely fawns, so.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
As I said, this is one where the commentator said the words are just undecipherable, and they are the translation is more from the Greek Septuagint than it is from the Hebrew.
I mean, they just supposed to be good-looking group? Is that the point?
May have been.
Simple as that.
More likely, what Belinda was saying about being a fruitful
Many.
group, and
Mine has a comment that says the tribe of Naphtali will flourish amid the rich natural resources of Upper Galilee.
okay,
Yeah, extra stuff.
yeah.
They use the word fruitful for Joseph in the next verse too,
Mm-hmm.
but not for Asher.
So,
Naphtali, I mean.
Marcia, you get to read about Joseph.
How far? So, through 26?
26, yes.
Okay.
Read Joseph.
Okay. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall. The archers fiercely attacked him. They shot at him and pressed him hard. Yet his bow remained taut, and his arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, by the God of your father who will help you, by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of your father are stronger than the blessings of the eternal mountains, the bounties of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph, on the brow of him who was set apart from his brothers.
So what are the things that we learn about Joseph here?
Well, he's resilient,
Mm-hmm.
been attacked and stood up. Bow remain top, meaning he's still ready to shoot, I guess that's what it means.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That he's been chosen by God.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have any notes on verse 22?
Yes.
Just that it's uncertain what the meaning is,
Yeah.
if branches run over the wall. You're
Right,
in
mine just-
NRSV, I presume?
Right, mine says meaning of Hebrew uncertain.
Okay.
I assume so, your branches run over the wall, it's just growing and growing and growing. That's what I think.
That's
of it.
possible.
Yeah.
I think of the ivy at home, it's growing way over my wall. It's just
The-
getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So,
The other possibility is that it's sort of taking over somebody else's. The wall separates, but
Yeah.
Joseph. But the fact that it's another one of those passages where the Hebrew is uncertain makes more sense. And that Joseph will have the protection of the mighty one, or El Shaddai, and his enemies will basically fall apart because of them.
he's set apart from his brothers, which is kind of like Judah. So who's the main one there? I can't tell out of this.
Right.
Not that I'm supposed to.
Well, all through this section, Jacob keeps giving preferential treatment to Joseph.
Mhm.
Although in history, Joseph does not go to Canaan as part of the Exodus. The land that is portioned out are portioned out to his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And so it's unclear as to exactly what this would mean, except for the fact we keep seeing Joseph given preference by Jacob.
But with all the blessings that he's giving to
Mhm.
Joseph,
Yes,
he doesn't end up.
yes.
So it's like, it didn't work. It didn't.
Well,
I
or
mean,
back in the blessing of the sons, there's an indication that the blessing to Joseph goes.
should,
to the
yeah,
two
is
sons.
getting passed on.
Okay, let me just wrap this up. Benjamin is a ravening wolf. In the morning, he devours his prey. In the evening, he is still dividing the spoil. All these make up the tribes of Israel, 12 in number, and this is what their father said to them. He blessed them, giving to each one an appropriate blessing. So once again, we have the 12 tribes. Benjamin doesn't sound like a really good person
Kind
here.
of ravenous wolf.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Well, mine says that the image of the wolf, Jacob reveals that the descendants of Benjamin will be aggressive warriors.
Mhm. And this footnote ties it with Saul becoming the king. He was from the tribe of Benjamin.
And we do know there was a lot of
Mhm.
warring and
Yeah.
fighting and
Okay, next week we'll pick up with Jacob's last moments and his death, and then chapter 50, which is his funeral. And we will get the book of Genesis wrapped up.
yeah.
Okay.